Welcome to Lesson 4 for World War II. By the end of the lecture, you will know about the U.S. mobilization for war, women in World War II, and the Japanese-American treatment post-December 7, 1941. As the United States prepared for war, thousands of American men received official notices to enter the Army or Navy. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, tens of thousands more volunteered to serve. Altogether, 10 million men were drafted into the military, and another 6 million men and women volunteered to serve. To meet the demand, FDR knew that the government would have to coordinate the production of American businesses. The War Production Board was set up in January of 1942 to direct factories to produce war goods. It quickly halted the production of hundreds of civilian goods, from cars and lawnmowers to things needed for war. The demand for war goods ended the Great Depression. People were put back to work and unemployment fell. Essentially, World War II ended the Great Depression. Even though Americans had money to spend now, they lived with shortages throughout the duration of the war. Not only were there great amounts of food being sent to the military, but also supplies of some imported foods were cut off. Sugar, for example, became scarce from the Philippines. The major source of American imports fell to the Japanese. The government began to ration the scarce items to control inflation, but to also have a fair distribution amongst its citizens. American citizens went without so that American soldiers could have enough. Before the war, most women who worked were single and young. Even during the Depression, most people disapproved of married women working because they would take jobs away from unemployed men. However, World War II brought women into different parts of the workforce as men joined the war. Over 6 million women joined the workforce during World War II. The government used images of Rosie the Riveter in posters and recruitment films to attract women to the workforce. Patriotism was her main motive for taking a war job. She wanted to do her part on the home front while her boyfriend or husband was fighting. Rosie the Riveter came to symbolize the millions of women who left home to enter the workforce, doing their patriotic duty for their country. While women were finding newfound freedom outside of the home, Japanese Americans were struggling for justice. After the Pearl Harbor bombing, the hostility that already existed toward the Japanese Americans grew into hatred and hysteria. As a result of these fears and prejudices, the government decided to remove all aliens from the West Coast. On February 19, 1942, President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, the War Relocation Authority set up to move out everyone of Japanese ancestry, about 120,000 people, both citizens and non-citizens. They would go into internment camps in remote areas inland. Relocation took place so fast that Japanese Americans had little time to secure their property before they left. Many lost their businesses, farms, homes, and other property. Families lived in barracks and slept on cots. People had to share bathrooms and dining facilities. Barbed wire and armed guards surrounded the camps. A few Japanese Americans challenged the internment policy in the courts, saying that their civil rights had been violated. However, the Supreme Court said that the military urgency of the situation demanded that all citizens of Japanese ancestry be segregated from the West Coast temporarily. Upon their release at the end of the war, some Japanese Americans went home and resumed their lives, but others had lost everything. In 1988, Congress passed a law awarding each surviving Japanese American that had been interned a tax-free payment of $20,000. More than 40 years after the event, the United States government officially apologized. So by now, you should be able to answer the following 4 questions. How did Americans prepare for World War II? How did the women participate in the war effort? What is the symbolism of Rosie the Riveter? And what occurred to the Japanese Americans following the Pearl Harbor attack?